At a high-stakes gallery opening, hidden truths and simmering passions threaten to boil over. Loosen your collar and fan yourself because the temperature in this gallery is about to rise faster than the bidding at a Sotheby's auction. Chapter 8. Canvas of Desire. The Duarte Gallery hummed with anticipation. Mariana's Emerging Voices of Brazil exhibition had drawn a diverse crowd. Local art enthusiasts, curious tourists, and a smattering of international collectors. Camila stood before her displayed works, a vision in a deep blue dress that matched the hues in her Cityscape series. Her fingers absently traced the tiny fire extinguisher charm on her bracelet as her eyes scanned the room. She told herself she wasn't looking for anyone in particular, but her heart quickened every time the door opened.
Stop fidgeting.
Mariana's sharp voice cut through her thoughts. The older woman appeared at her elbow, resplendent in a black pantsuit.
You look like you're about to bolt. Remember, you earned your place here.
Camila took a deep breath, forcing a smile.
Thank you, Señora Duarte. I'm just a little overwhelmed.
Mariana's eyes softened a fraction.
Understandable, but chin up, girl. The vultures are circling.
She nodded towards a group of well-dressed patrons heading their way.
Time to shine.
As Camila launched into her practiced spiel about her artistic process, she felt a familiar prickle on the back of her neck. She turned, her words faltering as she met a pair of storm-gray eyes across the room. Maxim stood by her Morning Possibilities painting, the quiet, hopeful piece that had caught Mariana's eye. He was the picture of elegance in a perfectly tailored suit, but there was something different about him. A tension in his shoulders, the intensity in his gaze that made Camila's breath catch.
Excuse me,
She murmured to the patrons, barely registering their nods as she made her way across the room.
You came?
She said softly as she reached Maxim's side. He turned to her, a small smile playing on his lips.
I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
For a moment, they stood in silence, both pretending to study the painting before them.
It's even more beautiful than I remembered.
Maxim said finally, his voice low.
There's a vulnerability here, a raw honesty that's captivating.
Camila felt heat rise to her cheeks.
Thank you. I wasn't sure about including it, actually. It's so different from my other work.
Maxim's hand brushed against hers, sending a jolt of electricity up her arm.
Sometimes it's the pieces we're most unsure about that resonate the most deeply with others.
Their eyes met, and Camila felt the world narrow to just the two of them. The noise of the gallery faded away, replaced by the thundering of her own heartbeat. The spell was broken by Mariana's voice, loud and deliberate.
Ah, Maxim, I see you found our rising star.
They stepped apart, Camila suddenly aware of how close they'd been standing. Mariana's sharp eyes missed nothing as she joined them, a knowing smirk on her face.
Mariana,
Maxim nodded, his composure impeccable.
you've outdone yourself with this exhibition. The talent on display is remarkable.
Flattery will get you everywhere, darling.
Mariana drawled.
Now, make yourself useful and introduce Camila to some of your collector friends. Girl needs to start building her network.
As Mariana swept away, Maxim offered Camila his arm.
Shall we?
Maxim guided Camila through the crowd, his hand a reassuring presence on the small of her back. Each introduction blended into the next, a kaleidoscope of faces and voices.
Camila, meet João Mendes, curator at the Museum of Modern Art in Sao Paulo.
Your use of color is extraordinary, Ms. Santos. How do you achieve such vibrancy?
Oh, it's all about layering.
Camila heard herself explain, surprised by her own confidence.
I start with a base of...
The scene shifted, and suddenly she was face to face with a stern-looking woman in horn-rimmed glasses.
Dr. Lisa Thornton, art critic for The Guardian.
Maxim murmured in her ear.
Interesting technique.
Dr. Thornton mused, peering at Urban Symphony No. 3s.
Reminiscent of Rivera, but with a distinctly Brazilian flair. Tell me, Ms. Santos, what statement are you making about the socio-economic divide in Rio?
Camila blinked, momentarily thrown. Then she felt Maxim's hand, warm and steady on her back, and the words flowed.
It's less a statement and more an observation.
She began, gesturing to the canvas.
See how the favela here bleeds into the luxury high-rise? In Rio, these worlds are constantly colliding, influencing each other in ways we often overlook.
Another shift, another introduction.
Carlos Fuentes, up-and-coming gallerist from Buenos Aires.
Maxim said, a hint of pride in his voice.
Ms. Santos, your work is phenomenal.
Carlos gushed, his eyes bright with excitement.
Have you considered exhibiting internationally? I have contacts in...
Now, Carlos.
Maxim interjected smoothly, his tone light but with an undercurrent of... Was that possessiveness?
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Camila's just beginning to make her mark here in Rio.
Their eyes met, and Camila felt a rush of warmth at the protectiveness in Maxim's gaze. The evening whirled on. A famous actor gushed over her use of perspective. A wealthy couple from New York debated the merits of her brushwork. A local street artist praised her ability to capture the soul of the city. Through it all, Maxim was a constant presence, guiding her, supporting her, his pride in her evident in every introduction. Camila found herself relaxing into the role of emerging artist, buoyed by his unwavering belief in her talent. As they paused for a moment between introductions, Maxim leaned in close, his breath warm against her ear.
You're a natural at this,
He murmured.
They're all falling in love with you.
Camila turned to him, a witty retort on her lips, but the intensity in his storm-gray eyes made the words die in her throat.
All of them?
She managed to whisper. Maxim's gaze softened, his hand tightening almost imperceptibly on her waist.
Well,
He said, his voice low and intimate.
perhaps one more than the others.
Before Camila could process the implications of that statement, they were swept into another conversation, another introduction. But the warmth of Maxim's words lingered, wrapping around her like a promise. It was during a rare moment alone that Camila overheard a snippet of conversation that made her blood run cold.
Waste of time. Volkov's just playing with another charity case. Remember that sculptor in Paris?
Camilla's grip tightened on her champagne flute. She turned, searching for Maxim in the crowd, suddenly desperate to put some distance between them. She found him deep in conversation with an elegantly dressed older woman. As Camila approached, she caught the tail end of their exchange.
Sure about this, Maxim? After what happened in St. Petersburg.
Maxim's eyes flickered to Camila as she drew near. A flash of something. Guilt? Fear? Crossing his face before his usual mask of calm settled into place.
Camila,
He said warmly, perhaps a touch too brightly.
there's someone I'd like you to meet. This is Valentina Petrova, a dear friend and fellow collector.
Valentina's shrewd eyes assessed Camila.
So this is the artist you've been raving about. I must say, your work is interesting.
The way she said interesting made it clear it wasn't entirely a compliment. Camila forced a smile.
Thank you. I'm glad you find it provocative.
Valentina's eyebrows rose at Camilla's pointed response. She turned to Maxim with a laugh.
Oh, I like this one. She's got fire.
You have no idea.
Maxim murmured, his eyes never leaving Camilla's face. The intensity of his gaze made Camilla's knees weak. She excused herself, suddenly desperate for air. On the gallery's small balcony, Camila gulped in the cool night air. Her mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, elation at the success of the show, confusion over the overheard conversations, and an undeniable, terrifying attraction to Maxim that threatened to consume her.
Camila,
Maxim's voice was soft behind her.
are you all right?
She turned, finding him closer than she expected. The moonlight cast shadows across his face, emphasizing the sharp planes of his cheekbones.
I'm fine.
She lied.
Just needed some air.
Maxim stepped closer, concern evident in his eyes.
You're shivering.
Before she could protest, he had shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. The weight of it, the warmth, the scent of his cologne. It was all too much.
Maxim,
She whispered, her resolve crumbling.
what are we doing?
He was silent for a long moment, his eyes searching hers. Then, slowly giving her every chance to pull away, he cupped her face in his hands.
Something terrifying.
He murmured.
Something wonderful.
Their lips met, and Camilla's world exploded into color. The kiss was everything she had imagined and nothing like she had expected. Tender yet passionate, familiar yet thrilling. She melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt as his arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Camila felt as though she were seeing clearly for the first time. The doubts and fears that had plagued her seemed to melt away, replaced by a heady mixture of hope and desire.
Camila,
Maxim began, his voice rough with emotion. The balcony door burst open, startling them apart. Mariana stood there, her eyes sparkling with triumph.
There you are. Camila, darling, you need to come back inside. Nicholas Alvarez just arrived, and he's absolutely enamored with your Urban Symphony series. I think we might have our first major sale.
As Mariana ushered her back into the gallery, Camila glanced back at Maxim. He stood alone on the balcony, silhouetted against the night sky, an unreadable expression on his face. In that moment, Camila allowed herself to imagine a future. One where her art hung in galleries around the world, where she woke up each morning to storm gray eyes and secret smiles. It was a beautiful dream, but as she was swept back into the whirlwind of the exhibition, doubt crept in. Was it a dream they could make real? Or would the morning light reveal it as just another beautiful illusion, destined to fade like so many others before it? Only time would tell. But for now, with the taste of Maxim's kiss still on her lips and the thrill of artistic recognition humming through her veins, Camila chose to believe in the masterpiece they were creating together, one brushstroke at a time.